what do you really want in your life?
Do you think everybody has a calling? We are all looking for the same thing. What inspires you? Can we heal from everything? How do we live an awakened life? Why do you think we're here as human beings? To say yes to life, you got to start saying yes to life experiences.
I think of today's Super Soul Sunday as an offering. I believe we're all on a journey towards creating more meaningful, loving, and lasting relationships. That's the point of being a human on Earth. Well, that often involves excavating, sifting, and forgiving the pain of the past. Joining me today is a friend and one of our favorite spiritual teachers, Elizabeth Lesser. When she was last here, Elizabeth was in the midst of a 2-year spiritual quest to repair and elevate her relationship with her sister Maggie, who at the time was dying from cancer. Elizabeth donated her bone marrow to her sister Maggie, and their shared cells came to symbolize a kind of sacred physical as well as spiritual bond. Maggie passed away in January 2015, but that eternal connection between the sisters remains.
Do you still feel her?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Elizabeth calls their experience a soul marrow transplant, which she writes about in her new memoir, Marrow, a love story. And later in this week's Super Soul Short.
And it's like she's seen the inside of me.
An artist uses her heart and her talent to create 100 paintings of gratitude.
When you and I last sat down together here, you were in the midst of helping your sister Maggie battle lymphoma. And then she passed.
Yes.
And I want to know, how has this past year unfolded for you spiritually and emotionally?
Well, the first effect when I lost her was deep grief, disbelief, you know, the stages of grief they talk about, which are real.
Even though you were prepared.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it sort of doesn't make a difference. I mean, I've lost my parents and some friends, but this was a long letting go of her, but still, it was a sense of loss. And then there's moments after someone dies, like maybe weeks, where the connection is so strong if you stay open to it.
Yeah.
Dreams, visitations, just constantly feeling surrounded by the person. That was wonderful. And slowly it begins to lessen as the person moves on and you move on in your own life. And then I began to kind of metabolize what had happened, because it had been 2 very intense years caring for her, going through the bone marrow transplant, myself being the donor, the fear of that, the intensity of our relationship. There were months of me finally like trying to figure out what was that all about. But I'll tell you one thing that was so helpful, difficult but helpful, is that the last time we were together here, as I was leaving, you said, you know, this is a book. And I took that to heart, of course, you know, books, and I started writing. I didn't know if it was going to be a book.
And I think even if it wasn't a book, being able to approach it from the standpoint of, I want to remember everything.
Yes.
I want to remember everything. I want every moment in this experience to teach me and lift me and unfold me and strengthen me, all those things. That's also what I was saying.
Yeah, I got to remember every little thing, and it's a blessing. It's a blessing to have that.
Because the fact that you were going to literally give up your cells for her, your bone marrow for her, you know, that is no small thing, that you're going in and taking out a part of yourself that's going to live in someone else. That has to be not just a physical thing, but also emotional, spiritual. It's an emotional, spiritual giving like none other.
Absolutely.
And I think that what you write at the beginning of Marrow on page 8, This is the essence of what this conversation is about today and the essence of what your book about. You say love of self, love of other, two strands in the love braid. I love braid. I've braided these strands together in all sorts of relationships in varying degrees of grace and ineptitude. I've messed up in both directions, being self-centered, being a martyr, not knowing my own worth, not valuing the essential worth of others. To love well is to get the balance right. It's the work of a lifetime. It is art. It's also what this book is about. Amazing. Beautiful words, but so true. It is to love well is to get the balance right. Yeah, that's what you figured out on this journey?
Yes, I've always been interested in what seems like two different things. How do I love myself? You know, everyone says, to thine own self be true, whether it's Shakespeare or the Bible or whomever. It's what we think is real. We gotta love ourselves. But at the same time, we have this yearning to connect with others and to see that self in the other. And so sometimes we err in one direction, being way more self-centered than we should be, and sometimes we err in the other direction, giving ourselves away, not trusting ourselves, being more for other people than for ourselves. And love is getting that balance right, bringing your real self to another person's real self. That's not easy.
It's not easy, and it's really not easy when people are at their lowest, when they are in pain, physical pain, emotional pain. They're sick. Yes. Yeah. But you did it.
We did it together, and we did it deliberately and consciously. Now, we had...
I love that you called the book Marrow, too. I didn't mean to interrupt just there. I just wanted to say.
Thank you.
I love that you call it Marrow, because it's not just about the fact that you gave up your bone marrow. It's about going also to the marrow of yourself and being able to give that to another person.
Yeah, we came to this distinction as we were working with each other to clean up our relationship so that maybe the bone marrow transplant would work better. We started calling what we were doing emotionally a soul marrow transplant. So there was the bone marrow transplant, and then we wanted to really give each other our souls, our true selves, because in a bone marrow transplant, two things can happen that would make it fail. The new marrow gets into the patient, and either her cells reject the new cells, or my cells would attack her. This idea of rejection and attack. So we wanted to work on no longer rejecting each other, no longer attacking each other.
Yeah. And what you knew, which I thought was so profound, we talked a little bit about this the last time we were together. What you knew is if you didn't fix your stuff that you had as sisters, that on a cellular level, it would not work. There would be discord.
Yeah, I knew it from all of my work and reading with the mind-body connection, and not just my belief in it, my experience it in myself. You know, when you're stressed, your immune system is lowered, you get the cold. I knew that there was a connection between...
When you're out of balance, this is out of balance.
That's right.
Yeah.
So when we're out of balance, then since we were about to share cells with each other, I thought if we're out of balance, then it's not going to work.
That makes sense. Real sense. So I love that I interrupted you when you said this is a journey we did. We did together, because in cooperation with each other, you made the decision. Was she at first reluctant to receive?
Very much so. We're very different, which was one of the reasons she was so surprised when, of the four sisters, I was the one whose marrow matched hers, because we're very different. And she was reluctant to do anything too touchy-feely or new agey or woo-woo. I've always been the woo-woo edge of the family. She's a real pragmatic one. Nurse practitioner, Vermont woodswoman. She loved me, but had some judgments about my life, shall we say.
Yeah.
Coming up, the spiritual truths of Elizabeth's soul-expanding journey.
What I learned from it is to err in the direction of connection with everyone, that we long to know each other soul to soul.
And later in this week's Super Soul Short, how a thoughtful thank you can shine as bright as the sun. Elizabeth Lesser and her younger sister Maggie grew up in a family of 6 on Long Island, New York. Their parents, Marcia and Gil, later moved the family to Vermont. Of the 4 daughters, Elizabeth and Maggie seemed to have the least in common. Elizabeth pursued a life deeply rooted in spirituality and co-founded the Omega Institute in 1977. She also became a best-selling author. Maggie chose a life of science. She studied botany and worked as a nurse practitioner. When Elizabeth was confirmed to be the match for Maggie's bone marrow transplant, the 2 sisters began therapy sessions in hopes of healing the broken, unforgiven, or unexplored places in their relationship. Their hope was that their intense spiritual repair work would create a welcoming environment for Elizabeth's bone marrow to coexist peacefully with Maggie's body.
And so you went into therapy. And what happened in therapy?
Well, at first I said to my sister, Maggie, what do you think about this idea of the mind-body connection and us cleaning up our relationship? And I was very surprised that it took her only a few minutes to say, I'm in. And she was in because her life is hanging in the balance. We do amazing things when we have to. So we went into therapy with a therapist that someone in our family already knew, so there was a sense of comfort for her. And you know, you think of therapy as taking a long time and you got to rehash everything and you're like, oh God, I don't want to go through this again. But it went really quickly because we had this deadline. Her life was hanging in the balance. So we both brought all of our attention and our presence and our best selves to it. And he brought us back through the years of our childhood, all the way back to our earliest memories of rejecting or attacking each other. And some of it was really petty, you know, you didn't sit next to me on the bus. And some of it was big, like those years when we weren't really relating or talking to each other much. And we got to say, why? Why did that happen? What was going on for you? And what was so remarkable was that we moved through it very fast, because the answer always was, it wasn't that I didn't love you, it's that this was going on in my life. Oh, why didn't you tell me then? And we began to see very quickly, we do this with everyone. We make assumptions, we don't tell our truth, we don't interrupt assumptions that then calcify into behavior, into grand misunderstandings. And because it was so intensified, because literally I was in the middle of getting ready to have my bone marrow harvested for her, we really showed up for each other. We cleaned things up very fast.
And everybody always talks about finding the match. It's a wonderful thing when you find the match, but no one rarely speaks about what the giver of the marrow is also experiencing. What was that for you?
Well, when I first found out I was the match, there was kind of an immediate sense of, I knew it, I knew I would be. And then there was a sense of, is it gonna work? Am I gonna hurt? Is it frightening? I had a tremendous amount of mixed emotions, but mostly what I had was, what an honor. You know, we all want to do things for other people. You want to feel useful, you want to feel purposeful, you want to feel
What an honor.
generous.
Yeah.
I mean, what could be easier in a way? You just get your blood taken out of you and you give it and you save someone's life. So it's an honor. It was an honor.
Yeah. Was there any pain for you at all?
Yeah, there's a lot of pain leading up to it. You know, the marrow in your bones is where your stem cells are created. And stem cells are what she needed. That's what a person with a blood cancer needs, new stem cells. And so right now, your stem cells are waiting for your body to say, I need new stem cells to come out through the bones and create new brain cells or new skin cells. It's a miracle.
I was just going to say.
It's a miracle.
Every moment is a blessed miracle.
It's amazing. Like if you just press on your thighs now, you wouldn't think my thigh is a place of miracles.
Yes.
We don't usually think of our thighs like that. But like deep in that bone,
Yeah.
especially those bones, there's this amazing life and death dance going on right now. And so in order to stimulate more stem cells to come out into the bloodstream, they give you this growth factor that makes your bones ache tremendously. And it happens over 5 days until so many.
Like, yeah, you're right about actually aching in your bones.
Yeah.
Yeah, people say that, I'm so bone tired, but when you actually ache in your bones. Yeah.
It was an amazing experience to feel that deep ache.
Well, one of the lessons that I think that emerged from your writing process is this idea that we all have to find our own authenticity. And I can see that you came out of it more of yourself than you've ever been, with a greater sense of clarity. And I know it's one of the reasons why you wanted to write the book, right?
Yeah, yes. I wanted to write a book about authenticity even before this story, but I was having trouble writing about it because, you know, it's a fine line between being authentic and being a narcissist, you know, like being so me.
Yes.
It's a very, and when you write about it, you can easily slip into that language of self, self, self. And I was looking for a way to write about authenticity. But it wasn't until that very experience I was just talking about, the ache in the bones, which actually happened the same day we had that first therapy session where we had dug deep for ourselves. And it was painful to dig into old stories about our relationship and to admit I was wrong, I'm sorry, for her to say it, for us to like make our way toward each other's soul. And when I began to feel that bone ache, it had a similarity that to find our authentic self sometimes is a painful journey, to sift through the voices and to sift through everything that we think we are that we aren't. It can be hard. It can be a difficult experience.
But I think what I got from this is that you want us all to know that although yours was a matter of life and death, because you used marrow and also as a metaphor for going deep, that we don't have to reach a life or death situation in order to offer the marrow of ourselves to another person.
Yeah, I would hope that's what someone would take away from the book, that this is not a situation that's going to happen to most people, but what I learned from it and what I've been living since it is to err in the direction of connection with everyone, to connect with people, even if it feels scary, even if you'd rather not. That we long to know each other soul to soul. We long for that, but we're afraid.
Yeah.
Coming up,
That is so powerful. But I think about all the people who are listening to us right now who have been hurt or hurt other people, and how simple it would be just to enter the space of peace with that by saying, how did I hurt you?
in her book, Marrow, author Elizabeth Lesser writes, "Deep in the center of the self are the soul cells of who you really are. Dig for them, believe in them, and offer them to another person, and you can heal each other's hearts."
When I was reading this, I was thinking about who are the people I need to clean up things with, to be in that space of cleaning up, and to be able to be in the position to say, what did I do to hurt you? How did I hurt you? What could I have done better? You all did all of that.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
And we did it because, as I said, we wanted to teach our cells to do the same thing when they got into her body. You know, like don't attack, don't reject. So we went through that. How did I hurt you? How did I hurt you? Will you forgive me? And
Wow, isn't that is so powerful? And as you say that, I think about all the people who are listening to us right now who have been hurt or hurt other people, and how simple it would be just to
it is. It's so simple.
enter the space of peace with that by saying, how did I hurt you?
How did I hurt you? Tell me. And then to listen. It's very hard not to get defensive.
Yeah, not to
and
get
this is why having a therapist, we only met with him twice. He taught us how to do it on our own. We then spent
How
months.
to really listen and not start with your, but what I didn't mean
right.
that, and I can't believe you felt that. And,
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
His only job the whole time was like, wait a minute, let her finish. And so it's simple, but it's not easy, and sometimes you need help. And not everyone is safe to do it with. This is an important
Yes.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not just important, that's essential. You have to be in agreement to do it.
You do.
You can't do it with somebody who is still caring, who still wants to hold on to the anger.
That's right. And I can assure you it doesn't work because I have tried. Over and over, sometimes with the same person.
Really?
Yes. I came out of the experience like, okay, I'm going to clean it up.
Yeah.
But there are some people who it will threaten. There are some people who really don't want to go there and who are so wounded that they just still feel they have to wound other people. Maya Angelou has a wonderful line, "Be careful when a naked man offers you a shirt." Yeah. And she said that after she said something like, I don't trust people who say, I love you, when they don't love themselves. So to me, that's what you look for. Is this person safe for me to be vulnerable with? Well, does this person love himself enough to go there with me?
And one of the things that becomes clear here in Marrow is that it's not about, making the other person come clean with themselves or finally, resolving whatever. It's about yourself. It's about fixing with yourself first and then
That's
the other
right.
person, right?
Maggie said something to me in one of the therapy sessions. We were what was called a perfect match. Our genetic markers for the bone marrow transplant were perfectly matched. And at one point in our therapy session, I was kind of beating myself up for stuff I had done. And she said, you don't have to be perfect to be my perfect match. And that was such a liberation for me, and it stayed with me, and I'd say it's probably the most important thing I took from it, that I don't have to be a perfect person to be just the right person for you right now. You don't have to be perfect either.
And tell me how this whole process changed your relationship with death.
Well, it's something I think about and have since I was a little kid. Fear of death, wanting to know what's on the other side, fascination with death, and watching her take her last breaths. Watching her change in the last days leading up to her death, where she finally knew she was going to die. Because even when all signs are pointing you're going to die, you don't believe it. But when she finally got, this is it, I'm heading out, and she was in her full right mind, and so I watched her become not only accepting of death, but ready for it, almost excited for it.
Really?
And she was not a believer in any way, shape, or form. But she began to say things like, see that break in the clouds? That's where I'm going. And her sense of death changed. And it really gave me a stronger faith that we go somewhere afterwards.
Coming up, the moment Elizabeth and Maggie found peace.
She said, this has been the best year of my life. Even though it had been a horrible year, full of physical pain and fear, she had never felt more clearly herself.
In her later years, Elizabeth's sister Maggie became an accomplished artist, well known for her botanical prints. Just days before she died, Maggie's final art exhibit opened in Vermont. Maggie took her leave, as Elizabeth describes her passing, at home, surrounded by friends and loved ones, including her 2 children, Nora and Hayden.
Tell me about the time the 2 of you were together and she said, "This has been the best year of my life."
Well, we were coming from one of the therapy sessions, the second therapy session. And we had said a lot of things to each other. And as we were driving home, it was a beautiful spring day, and we were by a river. We were about to cross a bridge. And she said, "Oh, there's one thing I forgot to tell you in the therapy session." And I said, "What?" And she said, "This has been the best year of my life." And then she told me how, even though it had been a horrible year, full of physical pain and fear, she had never felt more clearly herself.
Wow.
She had finally stood in herself, and she had a long history of not doing that, of a troubled marriage where she hadn't done it, of always doing what she thought other people wanted her to do, selling herself short all the time. And she said, "This is the year I came home to myself. Thank you for giving me this year."
Wow. And so when she said that, you felt?
I felt probably the most emotionally whole I had ever felt in my life. I felt we gave everything to each other. We went all the way with each other. You know, I've been married for many years. I have children, but I don't think 2 people have ever loved each other more than in that moment, because we had given everything. I'd given her my bone marrow. She'd given me her trust. We'd given each other our truths. We had cleaned up our relationship. There was nothing really left between us but love. And to hear that this has been the best year of my life, it was just love's confirmation.
Because I know you don't believe in closure.
No,
No.
I don't like that word. It's my least favorite word, closure. Especially in our culture, where people say, like, you get 2 days off, your mom died, come
Closure.
back to work, closure. It's a good thing. Move on, move on. To the extent that you've loved,
Yeah.
that's the extent that you want to keep your heart that open, even in grief,
Yeah.
because that's where you connect with the person.
Yeah. That's where you get love's confirmation, as
That's
you were
right.
saying.
That's right. You stay open. People are afraid to stay open because maybe it'll hurt. But the gift of grief is that you stay connected.
Do you still feel her?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I feel her all the time. I feel her right now. Yeah.
Can you tell me whether you think that her spirit, her energy, her somehow fused with your own
Well, you know, for that year that we shared the same
blood?
and we were in such an intense period of being together, I did feel closer to oneness with her than I've really ever felt with anyone. And at the same time, much more fully ourselves. That was one of the great mysteries to me that I solved during that year. How we are both one. We are one. We are the same.
Yes.
You and I, Oprah, we are one. We go back to the same river,
Yes.
but we also are very different, and we're uniquely ourselves. How's that possible? How are we one, and how are we unique souls? I'd always wondered about that, but I experienced it with her. We truly were one, but we were put here on earth to do different things. So when she died, though, I do feel she took her essence and went on into the next world. And
But then for a while, you feel the essence, because when Maya died,
Yeah.
I felt it. It was thick.
thick.
She was like right here all the time. It was like a real presence.
Yeah.
Coming up,
Didn't Maggie come to you in your dreams and tell you something? Can you share that?
and later, just as Maggie's art spoke to her connection to the natural world, this week's Super Soul Short weaves a connective thread of gratitude from the heart of the artist to the soul of the receiver.
Didn't Maggie come to you in your dreams and tell you something? Can you share that?
That's the other thing. Dreams, if you stay open
Yep.
at the end, you can get these dreams that I call visitations. And I've made a study of it. I've asked a lot of people about visitation dreams, and there's very similar qualities. The person who comes back is young and vibrant and very alive and just there. And so probably 2 weeks after she died, I had one of those dreams, the only dream I've had since she died of that strength. She came back, she was in a room, and I was so surprised to see her. I was like, but you died. How come you're here? She didn't speak. She went into a room, a large auditorium where a movie was being shown. And I went to find her because she walked very fast. And I found the seat where she had sat down, but when I looked to my left to see her, it was someone else. It was a man, and I couldn't tell, who is this man? Is he my ex-husband? Is he all the people I've hurt? Because there was a sense in this man of being very judgmental toward me, of not seeing my soul, of not liking who I was. And I woke up from it with a start, like, why did Maggie come back and show me this man? And then a friend of mine said, you know who that is? You know who that man was? It's you. It's the you who still is looking outside yourself for approval. It's the you who still doesn't trust her own marrow. Maggie came back to you to say, you don't need anyone else's approval. Approve of yourself. Approve of your own marrow. And that just rang so true, that she'd come back to say, everything you tried to teach me, Liz, do it yourself now, and do it for real.
So how did you become more authentically yourself in this process?
Well, in those therapy sessions with Maggie, I began to see how so much of what I thought she thought about me, and that I had internalized as what she thought, she didn't even think that about me. That we had these misconceptions about what the other thought about the other, and we turned them into these big storylines that affected how we felt about ourselves. Putting down those stories, both of us kind of rose out of the childhood stories. Oh, you're the little one, you're the bossy one, you're the good girl, you're the bad girl. We put those stories down. And in putting my childhood stories down with a member of my family, which is kind of unusual, most of the time people do it alone, and putting it down together, what bubbled up to the surface was just me. I'm enough, just who I am.
Oh, that is the quest to figure that out.
Yeah,
That's everybody's quest.
it is.
It's everybody's quest.
Yeah, and she stepped into her enoughness. I stepped into my enoughness. And you know what happens when two enoughnesses meet? Love. You know, it's like...
It's also got to be very powerful. Very powerful.
It is powerful.
Yeah. In the end, I know the lesson you wish for all of us is to live each day from the marrow. And you write on page 303, deep within the heart of the earth and the marrow of the bones is a compass that quivers to the power of love. And I know that through this journey you discovered love so big that you say your heart will never shrink back to its normal size.
Yeah. We think that the answer to life is complicated or you got to go on some big quest for it. And it turns out to be you're enough just because you are.
You're enough.
And find the seed of enoughness in the other person. You know, give them that gift. You're enough too. And that's where love is. That is the seed of love. Two people who know who they are in their grand simplicity. Seeing each other beyond the labels, beyond the ego, just being enough with each other.
Is enough. Thank you. Thank you, Liz. That was beautiful. Beautiful.
Next,
I drew him and I sitting on a bench with our 2 dogs, and it says, "I love my life with you."
an artist's masterwork of love. 100 heartfelt expressions of gratitude in this week's Super Soul Short. In this week's Super Soul Short, it took 2 years for artist Lori Portka to create a magnum opus of love and gratitude dedicated to 100 people who bring joy and hope to her life. Lori says her intention with each painting was to transfer thoughtful, heartfelt energy directly to those who inspire her the most.
So for the past year and a half, I have been painting and painting and painting my heart away in my studio. I've been making 100 paintings for 100 people that I am grateful for. And I decided to do this project because I want to live a life of gratitude. And I wanted it to be big. I wanted it to challenge me spiritually to really commit to gratitude, and I wanted it to challenge me artistically. One of the paintings that I made was for my beautiful hairdresser, Jasmine. When I go into that salon, I look forward to it. I love getting my hair done because I feel like she welcomes me at the door with just pure love. And I just know I'm gonna be loved and cared for when I go there. I feel differently about myself since I've started to see her. And I have this level of acceptance of myself that I know has changed just from the loving, genuine care that she gives me. I made a painting for Tony, who is the auto mechanic where we live. There's a very authentic feeling that you get from Tony that you just absolutely know you can trust him. And I don't have any problem at all taking my car in there by myself, and it's a garage full of guys. They're great. I never feel like he's adding anything on. In fact, I feel like he's looking out for us and trying to save us money. I feel like he's completely keeping us safe. So one of the paintings that I made was for Amy. I had never met her, but I knew of her story, which affected me so deeply. Her story about her daughter, Rosie, when her baby passed and how she worked her way through grief. In an email, she said to me that she felt like she was the luckiest woman in the world, that she got to hold her baby and be with her during the time that she was alive, even though it was such a short period. On a personal level, I do have experience with people passing because my father died when I was in high school. And my family just really had a hard time handling it. And I remembered thinking that there has to be another way we could view this. And so there's something about Amy's story that she's able to find a place of gratitude in all of that is one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. And it's changed for me the way I just see how we can accept our lives. So I did 99 paintings, and I had one more painting left, and it was for my husband. This project has been really lovely for my marriage. We specifically try to notice what the other person is doing and thank them for that, which I don't think we were doing very much of that before. And I drew him and I sitting on a bench with our 2 dogs, and we're overlooking Green Lakes, and it says, "I love my life with you." One of the things that I didn't expect from the exhibition was how emotional people were going to be. It really felt like it was just heart to heart connected.
It was beautiful. I was captivated by the color when I came in, the color and happiness that I instantly have a smile on my face, and I cannot believe that room generates that kind of energy that I didn't want to leave.
Most of the times you feel pretty bad about giving someone the bad news on their vehicles. So to have something like this, it's like, makes it, things a little bit easier where you feel, geez, I'm not just here taking their money, people do appreciate you, which is very nice. And it's gonna look good on the office wall.
It's such an honor to have someone think about you that intensely, put so much thought and love into something. It has so much about me. I think that's a really unique gift, to be able to see someone and it's like she's seen the inside of me.
I have learned that gratitude grows. It just grows and grows and grows. And the more that I focused on gratitude, the more I was grateful for. And I especially saw that with people. So I think from this project, I wasn't expecting to have sort of a different view of humanity in a way, but I actually do. I notice people now in a way that I didn't before. It seems like it's opened up my world a little bit bigger than it was, or maybe a lot bigger, actually.
And I'm so grateful to you, dear Super Soulers, for sharing your Sundays with me on this platform where we get to talk about the things in life that really matter. See you next week.